Several members of the Nigerian Senate appeared agitated last Tuesday as the plenary session deliberated on the rapidly unfolding flight of security from the land. The senators might have been whipped into action by news that Boko Haram were claiming territory and hoisting their flag in Niger State, right on the doorsteps of Abuja, Nigeria's seat of power. What can the national lawmakers do in these circumstances? Joining us now to share his thoughts about this is Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi, an associate professor and head of mass communication at Baze University, Abuja, Nigeria. Welcome to the program, Doctor. Good morning.
Morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Trudun. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Rufai. God bless you,
morning,
too.
Dr. Adeniy.
Amen, and you.
Well, Tunde already asked the main question. What should be the role of the National Assembly in dealing with the crisis of insecurity in Nigeria? We have had some members of that National Assembly calling for a state of emergency. And we try to, interrogate that a little bit with Mr. Mike Ejiofor. Is this a call for more seriousness, or is it state of emergency within the purview of the Constitution of Nigeria? But really, what should the National Assembly, what should it do? What can it do at a time when we have governors lamenting 50 communities taken over in Zamfara State by bandits and terrorists, 42 communities taken over in Niger State, by bandits and terrorists, with the governor claiming that from Kaura village to Abuja, it's just 2 hours. And some people have said, in fact, the National Assembly members, their main contribution is that they are saying maybe the National Assembly should proceed on recess so that they can be safe.
Yeah, very well, Doc. I think the times are actually there, and it's okay for us to have all stakeholders, all sections of the system intervening at the level of valuable contribution. And that's what I think the National Assembly is doing. But more importantly, the National Assembly is a coordinate arm of government, and as it stands by the drafters, from the wisdom of the drafters of the Constitution, it is not necessarily a primus inter pares. It's not a first among equal. The first among equal is the executive. The best they can do is admonition. The best they can do is advocacy. The best they can do is to expand our understanding through conversation, through calling attention to the problems that we have, and I think that's what they are doing. Constitutionally, again, they are supposed to appropriate, legislate, and oversight. And I want to believe that they have a very good understanding of that, because I want to, from media reports, they are doing the best they can in that regard. But more importantly, again, what has happened to all the monies they have been appropriating over the years, like the previous speaker said, we have had so many appropriations, so many trillions committed to arm, and of course, those who are disturbing us really, how much do they have? Comparatively, you'll see that we are spending more money, we're investing more resources into this business of insecurity than those who are perpetrating it. Why is this so? In my thinking, I think those who we are dealing with, the perpetrators are people who have a vacant sense of the self, and that kind of sense comes, from 2 points of view. One, they've been deprived, they've been depraved over the years. They've been constructed to be dangerous because they have an empty sense of the self. They do not see a valuable self. They do not see value in the other person, and they therefore lose all sense of humanity, and they can take away lives with ease, as easy as possible. So it's a construction that we brought about ourselves through long years of misgovernance, long years of deindustrialization, long years of corruption. It came over the years. It's not something that we can deal with in one fell swoop. And that's why we should be talking about short, medium, and long-term measures. We need to understand that, it is more like an 80% soft approach that we need, and maybe a 20% of kinetic, hard, strong approach, because it's something that mutated, through our system, but it can be dealt with, like we are doing in some circles, through conversations, through discussion, through opening up our thoughts, because thoughts, conversation, information are like cartilage with which you lubricate the joints and the bones of a democracy, as the case could be.
Right. What do you think of the tone and the content of various calls, well, I don't want to use the word outbursts, but some people have been quite emotional, vis-a-vis the opinion or the perspective expressed by the Minister for Information, Lai Mohammed, and also the Vice President, that the political elite ought to tread carefully when talking about Nigeria's insecurity challenges so that they don't inevitably I'm completely muddled, so that they don't cause us to go over the precipice that we're hovering around at this point. I got there eventually. And compared to the comments from former President Obasanjo, which was sort of more optimistic, sort of a voice of calm, what do you think of all of those messages that are coming from, the powers that be?
Yeah, I think those messages are quite appropriate because the times are really delicate, and we do not. Sometimes we find it very difficult to rave off any sense of optimism at all. All kinds of alarms are being raised in circles, becoming worrisome. Even the capital is being threatened. If they are 3 hours away in Niger State, then what do you expect? How much time do you think it will take for them to close in on Abuja? And do not forget, Abuja is largely, yes, a purpose-built capital, but likely a name. The surrounding, the countrysides are usually are really downtowns in the true sense of the word, where you have all kinds of people. So it's very easy for the place to be infiltrated, except we want to just believe that the security agency will live up to their responsibility and help us push them back like they did some years ago. So it's a time, for us to, for leaders, really, to be more engaging, to be concerned about consensus building, to come up with words that would rather pacify rather than strain, or add to the tension. But above all else, we also should not run away from the fact that, the number one citizen has a greater responsibility, or maybe the greatest responsibility, because the buck proverbially stops at his desk. And what do we expect him to do now? Well, left to me, I would have said this is the time for him to move more, maybe some surprise visits to the epicenters of the crisis, land in Maiduguri, make a detour in Kaduna, go to Ibadan, get to Warri, to Owerri, Port Harcourt, when that is done, call a meeting of opinion leaders, talk to them, engage the media, address the nation. Let's have some activity. There are ways in which some of these actions, they may be intangible. There are ways in which they can assuage feelings, and thaw nerves, so that we can have a sense of collective belonging, and we can have this feeling that we are working towards a solution, and our president is actually doing the best he can. Yes, we know that he's probably doing the best he can. I do not want to believe that he has an ill intention. I believe that he's well-intentioned, and probably he's also somehow overwhelmed. And more importantly, again, it's also to say that around him are some of the best bank of knowledge you can expect any president to have anywhere in the world. Do not forget that Professor Gambari is there as chief of staff. One of the best scholars this country has ever produced, a diplomat par excellence, somebody who plied the straight at the golden era of Nigeria's educational system at the time of Claudake, Escotoyo, Bala Usman, Patrick Wilmot. So I do not expect that the presidency is bereft of knowledge. I believe that they have substantial knowledge from where they can tap from. And if the president cannot do it, there's also another competent person, the professor. We have a professor as vice president. Why not we have these people moving about, assuaging feelings, talking to people, so that we can have a greater sense of a responsive, and action-packed presidency, more than this kind of this semi-lethargy that we are seeing. So we need a lot more action through conversation, through engagement. Yes, you may say whatever, anybody can say whatever they like. We may like him or not. The governor of Kaduna State, for instance, he's very forthright, he's very engaging about his approach. It may not be popular, really, with the decision he took on not negotiating or dialoguing with the bandits, but you cannot deny him of engaging. Even when he's criticized, come and engage. We need those kind of engagement at the center so that we can have a feeling of integration and involvement, a feeling of action, not just emotion, but we really need action. And not just mouthing or pronouncement, but we need to see these things being exemplified in the actions of our leaders, as the case could be, Tudun, Doctor, and Rufai.
Okay, great insight, as always. But the truth is, as regards coming out and speaking to the people, you remember we had a very good, fine spot. I think it was last year, correct me if I'm wrong now, when the president was supposed to come speak to the National Assembly, a joint session. And in fact, there was an announcement, I think Loretta Noche did put out a tweet that, oh, he will be addressing the National Assembly, and we're all excited about it. I remember, yeah, we're on this table. And all of a sudden, we waited and waited and waited, and no show. And the word back and forth then was, oh, some people are going to heckle him and the likes. So when you're talking about him speaking around, and we had a sweet spot for him to be able to address the National Assembly at that point in time, how can you reconcile both?
Well, we've been told, Rufai, that it's probably a matter of style, but we're also asking him, we are pleading with him because our president, the bulk presently stopped at his desk. We are presently pleading with him to tweak his style a little bit, to suit the circumstance that we are in. The circumstance, the times we are in, is a time where we need engagement, where we need a bit of theatric, and these are intangibles that matter in good governance. Do not forget that I said that, these are all that can lubricate the wheel of solution profiling, the process of finding solution, short and long-lasting solution to the problem that we have. We don't want to believe that, we don't want to see a picture of reticence. Sometimes it sends the wrong message, that maybe somebody is disinterested, which is not necessarily the case, or somebody is stone cold, which may not necessarily be the case. But for us to be convinced that it is not the case, we need him to come out a little more and talk to us, make us feel that, steps are being taken. We know that steps are being taken, but how do we justify it? Is it only through lieutenants, through aides? Because if it is only through all these other officials, then we're not seeing enough, because obviously we are being overwhelmed, overwhelmed, not because of problems that arose in the last 6 or 7 years, but problems that have been with us over the years. But the responsibility for now, the onus for now, is for the president, the one who we presently see as our leader, to take action. He's the one that we have to call upon. And in calling upon him, we are saying that this is the way we think it should go. It should engage more with us, be much more forthcoming about steps being taken. Yes, we are seeing the National Assembly raising awareness. We saw an emotional outbreak the other day by Senator Smart Adeniyi, which is okay, but there's a difference between emotion and action. There's a difference between sentiment, and action. We want to see those differences manifesting. The National Assembly, beyond making a recommendation, beyond making visits to the president, I doubt if they can do much, really. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we need to take this commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi, an associate professor and head of the Department of Mass Communication at Baze University, Abuja, Nigeria. Dr. Adeniyi, thank you for staying with us. Before we went on break, you were referring to Senator Smart Adeyemi's concern and how we should go beyond sentiment and emotions. But I was going to ask you 2 quick questions that you can take along as you conclude your thoughts on that, on what Senator Adeyemi said. The first is this. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, was quoted, was it yesterday or the other day, as saying that the root cause of the problems we have in Nigeria today is the Murtala Mohammed coup of 1975, because General Gowon, as it then was planning to introduce free and compulsory, education for young Nigerians. But that because there was that coup, today, since 1975, he says we have over 13 million out-of-school children, hence the insecurity challenge in Nigeria. That's one. Second one, only yesterday our brother Femi Adesina and colleague was telling us that the government has now introduced what they call a growth through poverty program, National Growth Through Poverty Reduction program, and that this is the novel recommendation from that Presidential Advisory Committee on the economy. And now a steering committee has been set up to be led by the president, the vice president. Well, I don't know whether you've been able to see the details of this new growth through poverty reduction strategy. How is it different, for example, from the economic growth recovery plan, the EGRP, which was touted as the big strategy for poverty reduction and creation of, is it 10 million jobs or 100 million jobs? You know, to lift 100 million people out of poverty. And how is it different from the medium-term strategic plan, 2021 to 2025? Do you think that we're dealing with just policy paralysis, you know, in this regard?
All right, thank you very much, Doc. I think I'll start from the last question because that looks more serious-minded to me, with the greatest respect. You know, we have said it before that the problems we're having largely is a byproduct of our problematic, our skewed, our contradictory political economy. The political economy is essentially skewed against the poor, you know, and when people feel annihilated, people deprived, they become depraved. And in a state of deprivation, you know, you feel very free to bring harm to anyone in sight. Sometimes they hide under the cloak of religion, sometimes they hide under the cloak of economics, but most importantly, it's a state of deprivation that often make people to look for excuses. So when you hear people describe people as religious fanatics, you know, they're just using that as an excuse to exercise or demonstrate or exemplify their deprivation. And largely that's what the problem is. And those problems come because, you know, leadership, you know, governance has over the years been largely derelict, been irresponsible. You know, and it's not something that we can attribute to, or we can say began with this administration alone. We've had it over the years in the history of Nigeria is largely synonymous with the history of poor leadership. That's what we have had largely, and that's what we are seeing resulting in some of these things. It's just merely getting to a head. So any policy really that want to address the question of poverty, you know, that want to reverse this skewness, a situation will have a few people living in opulence, you know, in abundance, luxuriating, you know, and the source of wealth, you cannot easily trace it to nowhere else but public till. Then, of course, any policy in that direction is a welcome development. So, in that regard, I would say, well, it's a very good announcement from the spokesman, Mr. Femi Adesina. We just hope that it's not going to be something again that somebody will come and announce, and we will hardly see implementation. You know, or even if it's implemented at all, you know, it's going to be lethargic, you know, or something that will be half-hearted, or something that like the elites, the power elites, will turn around again, you know, to circumvent or to just help themselves with. Because there's nothing you can get in this country now without the element of connectionism. You have to know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody before we benefit from anything, even things that are just basic, things that are just services that government or should ordinarily render. You must know somebody, you know, and that's not how a society should run. So largely, if at the end of the day it's going to be implemented, you know, with a high sense of responsibility, with diligence, I think it's a welcome development, Dr. Abati, as long as it goes in addressing the perennial problem of poverty that has resulted into this deprivation and leading to these multiple acts of criminality across the country. And to your first question on what the information minister said, I just want to, maybe he was probably joking. I doubt if he actually, if he would be that simplistic to say that it was because Murtala Mohammed, a great leader, for that matter, was toppled. What has happened since Murtala Mohammed, you know, left power? We have had Obasanjo, we have had Shehu Shagari, we have had Buhari himself, Babangida and Shonekon, so to say, and Abubakar. And of course, we have had Obasanjo again, and you know, Yar'Adua, Jonathan, and Buhari again. So what has happened over the years? Why has the situation not been remedied? You know, so maybe he was just trying to to amuse us, maybe to make us laugh. Because I don't see it as a serious reason for anybody to say, to advance, you know, for the problem that we're having. We know definitely again that the poverty, the fact that a lot of children are out of school is also partly responsible for the problem we are having. But this is something we can also address alongside the problem of poverty. But unfortunately, education is also being hardly addressed in terms of resources and in terms of commitment, because many of us, the elites, think that they can seek alternative education elsewhere, irrespective of some quality schools that we have in this country, and forgetting that everything we do in life should essentially be local, because the world begins, from your primary environment before you externalize it. Like we saw it happened in the wake of the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of us couldn't travel out. Many, even the power elites with all their monies, they couldn't go anywhere. It just reminds us of the importance of developing the South before you think of others, and prioritizing the interest of the community before the South, compliant with the concentric circle of leadership. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. I think it has to be factors from the 1970s. It cannot be anything whatsoever to do with the fact that the current budget, 2021, is the lowest with regards to education, 6% in the past decade. It's a lousy 742 billion naira devoted to education. It just has to be 1975. But I just want to take your thoughts on Senator Smart Adeniyi. He was moved, and he's allowed to be. But what are your thoughts on the outburst by his colleague in the Senate, Senator Remi Tinubu, trying to upbraid him and for acting like he's in the PDP? At what point do we leave party politics and not be complicit in the senseless killing of Nigerians?
Well, it was a very, very brilliant question, typically. But I just think that a serious issue was being discussed, and Senator Adeniyi was anecdotal. He was just helping us highlight, rather unconsciously, the problem we have in this country. At his level, imagine becoming emotional. Easily, you can say he's going to be one of those people that will find a way to survive because of the opportunities around him and the privileges that he enjoys. His achievements, his accomplishments, or his ascriptions. But again, he just chose to associate with the people by being emotional, and I'm sure it was very, very unconscious, because if you saw the pitches of his voice, it was oscillating before it declined into tears. And of course, we had someone else saying something else beside him and saying that, well, you're a member of. I think that I doubt really if the female senator, or if the senator, actually thought about what he said, she said before she said it. With due respect to her, I'm not sure that the full weight of the moment was on her when she made that statement. If you ask her now, I'm sure she's likely to say something different. So perhaps she was just trying to remind Adeniyi that you are a member of our party and you shouldn't say things that will look as if you're...
On that note, Dr. Adeniyi, thank you very much for joining us.